The vampire Lestat here. I have a story to tell you. It's about something that happened to me. It begins in Miami in the year 1990, and I really want to start right there. But it's important that I tell you about the dreams I'd been having before that time, for they are very much part of the tale. I'm talking now about dreams of a child vampire with a woman's mind and an angel's face, and a dream of my mortal friend, David. But there were dreams also of my mortal boyhood in France, my father's bleak and ruined castle in the Auvergne, and the time I went out to hunt a pack of wolves that were preying upon my poor village. Dreams can be as real as events, or so it seemed to me afterwards, and I was in a dark frame of mind when these dreams began. A vagabond vampire roaming the earth, sometimes so covered with dust that no one took the slightest notice of me. What good was it to have full and beautiful blonde hair, sharp blue eyes, razzle-dazzle clothes, an irresistible smile, and a well-proportioned body 6 feet in height that can, in spite of its 200 years, pass for that of a 20-year-old mortal? I was still a man of reason, however, a child of the 18th century in which I'd actually lived before I was born into darkness. But as the 1980s were drawing to a close, I was much changed from the dashing fledgling vampire I had once been, so attached to his classic black cape. I had been transformed into a dark god of some sorts, thanks to suffering and triumph, and too much of the blood of our vampire elders. I had powers which left me baffled and sometimes even frightened. I had powers which made me sorrowful, though I did not always understand the reason for it. I could, for example, move high into the air at will, traveling the night winds over great distances as easily as a spirit. I could affect or destroy matter with the power of my mind. I could kindle a fire by the mere wish to do so. I could also call to the other immortals over countries and continents with my preternatural voice, and I could effortlessly read the minds of vampires and humans. Not bad, you might think. I loathed it, without doubt. I was grieving for my old selves, the mortal boy, the newborn revenant, once determined to be good at being bad, if that was his predicament. I'm not a pragmatist, understand. I have a keen and merciless conscience. I could have been a nice guy. Maybe at times I am, but always I've been a man of action. Grief is a waste, and so is fear. And action is what you'll get here as soon as I get through this introduction. Remember, beginnings are always hard, and most are artificial. It was the best of times and the worst of times. Really? When? And all happy families are not alike. Even Tolstoy must have realized that. I can't get away with in the beginning, or they threw me off the hay truck at noon, or I would do it. I always get away with whatever I can, believe me. And as Nabokov said, in the voice of Humbert Humbert, you can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style. Can't fancy means experimental? I already know, of course, that I am sensuous, florid, lush, humid. Enough critics have told me that. Alas, I have to do things my own way, and I will get to the beginning, if that isn't a contradiction in terms, I promise you. Right now, I must explain that before this adventure commenced. I was also grieving for the other immortals I had known and loved because they had long ago scattered from our last late 20th century gathering place. They had one by one disappeared into the time of the world, which was inevitable. Vampires don't really like others of their kind, though their need for emotional companions is desperate. Out of that, I'd made my fledglings, Louis de Pontalac, who became my patient and often loving 19th century comrade, and with his unwitting aid, and beautiful and doomed child vampire, Claudia. And during these lovely vagabond nights of the late 20th century, Louis was the only immortal whom I saw quite often, the most human of all of us, the most ungodlike. I never stayed away too long from his shack in the wilderness of uptown New Orleans, but you'll see, I'll get to that. Louis is in this story. The point is, you'll find precious little here about the others, indeed almost nothing, except for Claudia. I was dreaming more and more often of Claudia. Let me explain about Claudia. She had been destroyed over a century before, yet I feel her presence all the time, as if she were just around the corner. It was 1794 when I had made this succulent little vampire out of a dying orphan, and 60 years passed before she rose up against me. I'll put you in your coffin forever, Father. I did sleep in a coffin then, and it was a period piece. That lurid attempted murder, involving as it did mortal victims baited with poisons to cloud my mind, knives tearing my white flesh, and the ultimate abandonment of my seemingly lifeless form in the rank waters of the swamp beyond the dim lights of New Orleans. Well, it didn't work. There are very few sure ways to kill the undead. The sun, fire. One must aim for total obliteration. And after all, we are talking about the vampire Lestat here. Claudia suffered for this, being executed later by an evil coven of blood drinkers who thrived in the very heart of Paris in the infamous theater of the vampires. I'd broken the rules when I made a blood drinker of a child so small, and for that reason alone, the Parisian monsters might have put an end to her. But she too had broken their rules in trying to destroy her maker, and that, you might say, was their logical reason for shutting her out into the bright light of day, which burnt her to ashes. It's a hell of a way to execute someone, as far as I'm concerned, because those who lock you out must quickly retire to their coffins, and are not even there to witness the mighty sun carrying out their grim sentence. But that's what they did to this exquisite and delicate creature that I had fashioned with my vampiric blood in a ramshackle Spanish colony in the New World, to be my friend, my pupil, my love, my muse, my fellow hunter, and yes, my daughter. If you read Interview with a Vampire, then you'll know all about this. It's Louis' version of our time together. Louis tells of his love for this, our child, and of his vengeance against those who destroyed her. If you read my books, The Vampire Lestat and the Queen of the Damned, you know all about me also. You know our history for what it's worth, and history is never worth too much, and how we came into being thousands of years ago, and that we propagate by carefully giving the dark blood to mortals when we wish to take them along the devil's road with us. But you don't have to read those works to understand this one, and you won't find here the cast of thousands that crowded the Queen of the Damned. Western civilization will not for one second teeter on the brink, and there will be no revelations from ancient times or old ones confiding half-truths or riddles or promises, answers that do not in fact exist and never have existed. No, I have done all that before. This is a contemporary story. It's a volume in the Vampire Chronicles. Make no mistake. But it is the first real modern volume, for it accepts the horrifying absurdity of existence from the start, and it takes us into the mind and into the soul of its hero. Can you guess who?